Alright, so this is going to be this is TO, by the way. And welcome to the potato couch. Uh this is going to be a new thing that we're doing. It's kind of like, I guess, a personal series for me. I'm going to call it Tater Talks. So so um yeah. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to pick like a topic from nerd culture or something that I just enjoy. Um, Maybe every week, maybe a little less frequently than that, and I'm just gonna talk for about it for a little while. And yeah, so as you can probably already tell by whatever I title this video, my first topic has to do with Marvel Comics, specifically what they're doing recently, because Marvel Comics is something that I care about like very deeply. I grew up reading Spider-Man and Fantastic Four comic books. Like those were my two big series, and the occasional Hulk comic book. Um, so what I really want to say is recently, Marvel started doing an event called Secret Empire, and I don't know if it'll be finished by the time this video is out. I know that the 10th and final, air quotes, 10th, really it's going to be like the 11th because they had a zero issue, but the 10th and final issue of the event is going to be coming out pretty soon, and some details of it have been revealed, like the fact that Dream Captain America is going to be smacking Hydra Captain America wearing his fancy green Iron Man armor across the face and defeating him and taking the role of Captain America back. And I guess this whole thing, and also the fact that Marvel's saying that they're basically going to be toning down the events for probably the first time in 10 years once Secret Empire is done. They're going to kick off their Marvel Legacy and Marvel Generations one-shots. And this is basically going to be their equivalent of what DC did last year with Rebirth. So, uh, I just want to kind of talk about things that have happened over the past 13 years with their comics and things that I would like to see happen. Because as far as I'm concerned, Secret Empire is the culmination of the past 13 years of Marvel Comics, going all the way back to Avengers Disassembled. Um, because Avengers Disassembled was like the beginning of Marvel's like truly big storylines and events that really defined them through the 2000s and the 2010s. And it was the first major storyline where like the villain turned out to be one of the good guys, one of their former allies, when Scarlet Witch just kind of went bonkers and started messing with the Avengers. Like, the things she did resulted in the deaths of the Vision and Hawkeye and Ant-Man, and so it was a big deal. Um, so they had, and that's not the type of storyline that just goes away. Like, it ended the Avengers series at the time, and that's not the sort of storyline that just ends there. It doesn't finish because the entire Marvel Universe had to keep going after that, which means that this is just the sort of thing that they needed to deal with. So that led directly into House of M the next year, which was the storyline in which Scarlet Witch, who was convinced by Quicksilver to do this, created an alternate reality where, mutants were dominant, all the superheroes like had their deepest wishes and all that. Like for Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy was still alive, Uncle Ben was still alive, he still got to be Spider-Man and have, a family. Um, that sort of thing. And like Wolverine's greatest wish was for him to have his memories back. So he had all of his memories from the real Marvel timeline back, which means that he knew that something was wrong. So, anyways, and that story ends with Scarlet Witch going bonkers again and being mad at Magneto, who at the time was believed to be her father. Which, that's another thing that upsets me, is that he's not actually their father, but I'll get to that later. Um, but yeah, so she was mad at Magneto, and she ended up nearly wiping out the mutant race when she reset reality back to the way it was supposed to be. So that led directly into Decimation, which was, you know, the whole thing where the X-Men were decimated. It's really all in the title. So the yeah, and I'm going to be completely honest. 2005 to 2012 was probably my personal favorite era in X-Men comics because I just really like the near extinction storyline that they went through. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of people probably disliked that whole like theme and idea, but I personally enjoyed it. It added some genuine stakes and drama to the X-Men comics, where I feel like with the constant death and resurrection of Jean Grey just being one example, like a lot of things that mattered didn't matter anymore for X-Men. Like, what's the point in caring if, you know, they're all going to die and come back anyway? So the fact that mutants were nearly extinct and their fight was almost lost was like it meant something. And then, you know, the birth of Hope Summers not long after that also meant something significant because it then gave them, you know, an end goal, something that could be achieved. They could rekindle their race. So that was, you know, I will say Avengers Disassembled led into some of the best X-Men storytelling, oddly enough, of the past 2 decades. And there were some good Avengers stories that came out of it. Among them being Civil War. But I will say, as much as I love the original Civil War storyline, that probably did many worse things than it did good things. Like, it was probably worse for Marvel than it was, you know, beneficial for them. Because the success of the Civil War storyline and its sheer scope and everything that was done with it really led into the whole idea that, like, oh, well, we can just do one of these big status quo changing crossover events with these huge shockwaves and ripples through the entire Marvel universe every year, and people will they'll buy it, they'll eat it up. This could make us a lot of money. So every year they started trying to contrive some reason for all these superheroes to get together to fight the same villain, or more often than not, fight each other. So and I personally believe that from 2007 to the present, the Marvel Civil War never actually ended, because ever since then they just have not stopped fighting each other. Characters have changed sides, they've fought each other for different reasons, but in the end, like, it's all just been one big civil war to me. So it's and it has been interesting. But in the long run, I don't know that it's necessarily been a good thing, because Marvel kind of started leaning on the event as a crutch. Individual character storylines were thrown out the window in favor of just filler until the next big event where they could all cross over with each other and have their tie-ins, when half the time a lot of the tie-ins wouldn't actually be tie-ins. They would just have the title of the event on the cover of their issue, and then the character would still continue on with whatever they were doing. So anyone who is interested in the event wouldn't know which characters weren't actually involved, so they wouldn't know what to skip. And anyone who just wanted to read a coherent, singular story about whatever character they were reading at the time kept getting annual interruptions for the sake of servicing a larger storyline. So, and I personally do like reading events. I like big crossovers, but after a while with Marvel, it just gets to be too much. So, I've actually like made the decision personally that I can't really read, you know, everything that I truly want to read with Marvel. So I've just chosen like all of the individual characters that are most important to me, and decided that I will read all of their series, and then everything else I read from Marvel is basically just going to be the events. I can't even really make time to seek out books based on the Ultimate Universe, Not that I'm terribly interested in Ultimate Comics anyway, uh, but I can't really read Ultimate Comics even if I wanted to, because I have to devote all of my time and comic book money towards just the characters from Marvel that I want to read and their events. So yeah, that's a bit of a depressing thought personally, but I've made my peace with it. I'm okay with it. But so in the end, yeah, I feel like the event was a bit of a detriment, because from Civil War that leads directly into World War Hulk, which actually that one was really good. That was a fantastic story because that one was also a direct sequel to Planet Hulk. But then World War Hulk leads right into what was next? I think it was maybe Siege next. I think it was Siege next after that, because Thor finally returned, um, just before Siege and just after World War Hulk, and then after that I think it was no, it wasn't Siege. It was Secret Invasion was after World War Hulk. That was it, because Secret Invasion is where Norman Osborn killed the Queen of the Skrulls, and then I think like became the new head of defense for America. I'm not sure. I just know that he had like an organization that replaced Shield or something. And and then after Secret Invasion was Siege, because Norman no, it was Dark Reign between Secret Invasion and Siege, because Dark Reign is when Norman Osborn basically assembled all of his supervillain buddies and then started making them up like superheroes and stuff. And then after Dark Reign, that's when Siege came along, when Norman Osborn used his power as an excuse to attack Asgard, basically. He lost, obviously. And then it was after Siege that leads into a Fear Itself. Then I think after Fear Itself, like eventually, um, after Fear Itself, eventually it leads into like gradually into Avengers versus X-Men, which that was a good one, because Avengers versus X-Men, that's when I thought the events would finally be like, okay, they have to dial it back now, because this one's like the real culmination of everything we've seen so far. It's heroes fighting heroes, just like in Civil War. It's the Phoenix Force is coming back to rekindle the mutant race, which ties up the X-Men storyline, and also kind of ties up what was started with Avengers Disassembled. And I thought, yeah, this is going to be it. This is going to be the ending of it. And they might still have crossover events after this, but this is going to be the end. And for a long time, I thought that was the case. But as time progressed forward and Marvel kept publishing more, stories, as you do, because comic book publishers just don't, obviously they don't stop. But I began to realize more and more that the events that were coming were still kind of the result of Avengers Disassembled. And I got to the point where they were starting to do, I think, 2 events a year after a while, which that's ridiculous, because then you're basically spending the entire year in an event. And they would usually do it in a way that like half of the Marvel Universe was involved with one event while the other half was involved with the other. Like the X-Men would often get their own crossovers, separate from the Avengers, and things like that. And then like all the cosmic heroes, the ones in space, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova and Warlock and all them, they would get their own crossovers separate from the Earth heroes, that sort of thing. But once we hit Secret Wars, which was the result of like reality crashing together, which I can't help but feel like might possibly be a result of the Scarlet Witch messing with reality back in House of M, so still a result of Avengers Disassembled. Once Secret Wars happened, and that was really the last we saw of the Fantastic Four. And that's something that depresses me, that's the last we saw of the Fantastic Four as a team. But But like after Secret Wars, like we moved into all new, all different Marvel, except it wasn't all new and all different. We were still doing storylines from before Secret Wars. It's just all in one universe now. Except it's not all in one universe now. There's still a multiverse. It's just they got rid of all the Ultimate characters and put Ultimate Spider-Man in the main Marvel universe. That was really the only thing that happened that was different. Other than that, like we got new alternate universes like Spider-Gwen, which I hear is fantastic and I really want to read it, but I haven't yet. Um, that sort of thing. But so yeah, it's still all in a multiverse, even though the multiverse was supposed to be collapsing through I think Jonathan Hickman's run on New Avengers. He's a good writer. I like him. Anyway,
By the way, headset messed up.
yeah,
That's what that weird cut was.
yeah, the headset messed up, so there was a weird cut there, but that's fine. So continuing onward into Avengers Standoff, that's when Steve Rogers got his youth back, and but Sam Wilson didn't stop being Captain America, which that is a video I want to make at some point. Sam Wilson being Captain America. I have opinions about that. They're not bad. They're not racist opinions. Don't worry. But yeah. So moving forward after that, then it went into Civil War II, which was not as like cohesive as the first Civil War, which really says something. Because the first Civil War, at least, like it dealt quite. Everyone's storylines dealt quite heavily with the fact that there was a Civil War going on. But Civil War II, everyone just kind of kept doing their own thing, and the war was acknowledged. And that was the extent of it. I think the best part of Civil War II was the Captain America Steve Rogers bits, because he was like manipulating the whole thing from behind the scenes, and that's really cool, because this is after it was revealed that Steve Rogers was a Hydra agent. So, and then after Civil War II, we move into what they're doing now, Secret Empire, which I really like the idea of the Secret Empire story because it's doing something new with Captain America, something that's never been done before. It's the culmination of the past decade and nearly a half of Marvel's like big events and crossovers and storylines, and it's addressing a lot of like things about Marvel comics, and I guess to a certain extent like things in the real world without even meaning to, in a very interesting way. And I really enjoy like what they're doing with this story, and that they're doing something so big. Like it feels like once they're done with this, Marvel's going to go back to the way it was before Disassembled, before the Avengers disbanded. But at the same time, you know, nothing's ever going to be the same, because Wolverine, Logan Wolverine, he's dead, he's gone. Laura took his place, and Old Man Logan's kind of running around. So like it's taken two characters to replace Wolverine. There's another younger Spider-Man. Bruce Banner is dead, and a new, younger Hulk, who is mostly in control of himself, has taken his place. So this feels very much like Marvel's chance to like do what DC did with Rebirth, which I'd like to talk about that in a different video as well. But this is Marvel's chance to do what DC did with Rebirth, and that is to basically go back to their roots to a certain extent, go back to the way they were, without ignoring what they've been doing for the past few years, without completely sweeping it under the rug. Because Rebirth, that was, you know, it's still in the New 52 universe, but it's going back to the way DC was before Flashpoint. And that's a lot more recent than Avengers Disassembled. Marvel's got a lot of, I guess, supposed backtracking to do to go back to the way things were, even just a little bit. Like the Ultimate Universe is gone, and I honestly think that there's no way they could ever get something like that back, because the Ultimate Universe, you know, again, I never read it, not really interested in it, but based on what I've heard, like it was so different, it's so unique, and it was just something really special. It got a lot of people into Marvel Comics for the first time. Um, but it went on long enough that it was just as complex as the regular comics were, and so they tried to do things to simplify it, and it didn't work, and it wasn't like the only thing worth reading after that was Spider-Man because Miles Morales was introduced, and he's apparently a fantastic character. Haven't read anything with him in it yet, but I'm looking forward to it because I've heard fantastic things about his character. Um, but yeah, so I really hope that what happens next works for Marvel because I've been a Marvel kid since I was young. Like I said, I grew up reading Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, and I loved the Spider-Man and X-Men movies when I was a kid. So yeah, I really do hope that Marvel Legacy and Marvel Generations that it works and that it's really good because after what's been going on with Marvel's sales recently, I feel like they could use a win because they've kind of been losing out the past couple years to DC. So I guess that's all I really have to say. Just wanted to give like a retrospective, a history lesson for Marvel, and so I guess that's it. I need to come up with a unique sign off for Tater Talks. Um, this has been Tio, and I'm sitting on the couch touching myself. See you later.